listeners, good morning. Welcome back for day 3 of our shared reading, Gordy Gorilla and His 5 Senses. Before we get started today, I wanted to talk to you guys about characters. Characters are the people or the things in our story who the story is about. I would say people or animals in the story who the story is about. So we've been reading about Gordy the gorilla, and I wanted to ask you, who are the characters in our story? The title of our story gives us one hint about the character. And then as I was thinking about how we read this book, I was thinking about another character that I read about in the story. The first character in our story is Gordy Gorilla. We know that because he's on the front cover, and the story has his name in the title, Gordy Gorilla and His 5 Senses. But there's another character. Let's see who that character is, or if you remember. If you do, turn and tell somebody in your house who's the other character in the story. That's right, it's Papa, Gordy's dad. So the main characters in this story are Gordy and Papa. Now that we know the characters in the story, let's talk about something else really important that readers should know. Readers should know how to identify when someone's talking in the story and what they're saying. We do that by looking for something really special called quotation marks. Can you say that big word, quotation? I'm listening. Good. Let's clap that word, quotation. Ready? Quotation. Quotation marks. How many parts were in the word quotation? That's right, we did 3 claps, so there were 3 parts. Quotation marks tell us that someone's talking in the story. So let's look over on page 3, and if you have your book, I want you to turn to page 3. It will have a number 3 in the corner. And right here, I want to show you the quotation marks. Today, I'm going to circle the quotation marks, and you can do it at home as well. And then we're going to underline what was said. So everything at the beginning of the quotation marks, all the way to the end of the quotation marks right here, is what the person said. Now, let's try to figure out who said it. We're going to highlight the name of the person that is talking. If you don't have a highlighter, that's okay. You can circle the name of the person that's talking. Gordy said to Papa. Gordy said to Papa. Gordy was the one talking, and he was talking to Papa, so I'm going to highlight Gordy right here. Gordy said to Papa. And then let's talk about what he said. Help me learn something new. What are my 5 senses? What do they do? So our quotation marks tell us when someone's talking, and the beginning of the sentence or the end of the page can tell us who is doing the talking. This time, Gordy said to Papa, so Gordy is doing the talking. Let's try it again on this next page and see who's doing the talking now and what they said. Do you see the quotation marks? Go ahead and circle those quotation marks again. Good. I see one here, and I see a quotation mark here. So that is who is doing the talking. Or that tells us that someone is talking. Now let's see who is doing the talking. Papa said to Gordy. This time Papa's doing the talking. Papa said to Gordy. Now what did Papa say to Gordy? That's right. He said everything at the beginning of the quotation marks all the way to the end of the quotation marks. I'm going to underline everything that he said. Look, Papa said to Gordy, look, it stopped raining. Let's take a little walk, and I'll do some explaining. This is telling me that Gordy doesn't know much about the five senses and that Papa's getting ready to teach him. Did you see how we can look for quotation marks in order to determine what is being said and who is saying it? I want you to remember that as we're reading the book today. I think we're ready to reread now. Let's get started. Gordy Gorilla and his five senses. Gordy Gorilla and his five senses. Gordy said to Papa, "Help me learn something new. What are my five senses? What do they do?" Papa said to Gordy, "Look, it stopped raining. Let's take a little walk. I'll do some explaining." Papa said to Gordy, "The first sense is sight." Gordy said, I see puddles, 3 birds, and a kite." Papa let Gordy pet the puppy next door. "The second sense is touch." Gordy said, "Show me more." Gordy looks excited to learn today. He's got a big smile on his face. "Your third sense is smell. Use your nose," Papa said. They passed by the bakery. Gordy sniffed and smelled bread. Then Gordy heard music that was coming their way. "The fourth sense is hearing." Gordy said, "Hip! Hooray!" "Now I know the fifth sense," Gordy said. "Here's my clue. The fifth sense is taste, and it's a yummy one, too." Nice work, readers. Did you notice all of the quotation marks in the story and all of the times that Gordy and Papa were talking? Good. All right, we've got one more thing I want to talk about. Today I want to teach you that readers, after they've reread the story a few times, they reread to comprehend the story. So that time I was rereading and I was thinking about what was happening in the story so that I can answer some questions about it. Today, I'm going to show you how we don't even have to just answer them from our brain, but we can use our book to help us answer questions from the story. We're going to do it together. Are you ready? The first question I have for you is, what was the first sense Gordy used? What was the first sense Gordy used? I remember on page 5 that Gordy was using his sight to see the birds, the puddles, and a kite. So the first sense that Gordy used was his sight. Did you see how I used the book in order to find my answer? We call that using your text evidence. I got evidence from the story. All right, let's see the next question. How did Gordy use his sense of touch? How did Gordy use his sense of touch? I remember Gordy on page 6 touching the puppy next door. He was petting the puppy next door. I also remember that at the end of our story, Gordy was holding an ice cream cone. Even though he was using his sense of taste to taste it, he was using his sense of touch to hold it in his hand and to feel the texture of the cone. So 2 times in this story, I saw Gordy using his sense of touch. Last question. How many senses did Gordy use? How many senses did Gordy use? This should be an easy one. If we go back to the title page, it tells us how many senses Gordy used. Gordy Gorilla and his 5 senses. That tells me that Gordy used all 5 senses. Let's review what those senses are together one more time. Sight, hearing, smelling, touching, and tasting. Did you see, readers, how we could use our book in order to answer questions about what we read? I want to remind you that you can do that when you're reading this story or when you're reading any story. Now, I'm going to leave you with one more question, and your job is to look for the answer in your book and find someone in your house to tell the answer to. Remember to use a complete sentence when you are talking. The question is, what do you think Gordy's favorite sense to use was? I'm going to ask it again. What do you think Gordy's favorite sense to use was? When you're telling somebody in your house, make sure you say, I think Gordy's favorite sense to use was, and be sure that you use your book to help you answer the questions. I will see you later, scholars. Bye.